Welcome to our 5 on 5. Please be joined by Congressman Greg Walden. Congressman, good to see you.
Good to be with you.
Thanks for being here today. A lot happening in the last 24 hours. But before we get to all the politics, I want to ask you about this roundtable discussion you held just maybe an hour ago, talking about opioids, law enforcement, healthcare people there. Tell us about the legislation in Congress with opioids and what you learned today.
You know, we have 12 pieces of legislation my colleagues and I have put forward, passed out of the Energy and Commerce Committee a week or so ago. They'll be on the House floor next week. Some of it's built upon the successes here in Southern Oregon, Central Oregon, and elsewhere to deal with the opioid epidemic, if you will. We need to be able to treat pain and have good pain management. But when you have 1 out of every 3 people with a prescription for opioids, when you have 2,226 Oregonians over the last 14 years have died as a result of overdoses of opioids, when this often leads to heroin usage because it's about the third the cost of a prescription painkiller, we got to make changes. And there are lots of things we can do federally that seem to get good response locally to help them have the tools to address this problem. If not, we're just going to be in a heck of a mess. There are now more Oregonians killed through opioid overdoses than through car accidents. And most people have no idea that's the case. And so it's disrupting families, tears apart our communities. Law enforcement will tell you much of the uptick in property crime goes to fund drug habits. And so it affects us everywhere we turn. We need to be compassionate and care for those who need treatment. We need to make sure they have access to it. We need to change federal law in several places that will reduce the number of surplus pills that are out on the black market, if you will. So we're making a lot of those changes, and I think it'll help.
Okay, so let's talk about Ted Cruz and John Kasich, both suspending their campaigns now in the last 24 hours, making Donald Trump the presumptive nominee for the Republicans. What's your reaction to that?
Well, you know, Republican voters in the states leading up to ours have already made the decision. That's why I wish our primary were earlier, so we would actually have more of a say in the outcome. Not that it would necessarily would have changed this, but at least all the candidates would have come more than just maybe once and paid attention to our issues. We've got a lot of regional and issues that I wish we were more in the national play. I don't know why New Hampshire always has to lead with 2 members of Congress. We got 5. You know, it'd be nice to have them out here talking about our water issues and our timber issues and our economic issues. But the long and the short of it is voters on both sides are making decisions. And I think what Donald Trump and to a certain extent Ted Cruz on the right and Bernie Sanders on the left have tapped into is a similar vein of frustration about an economy that's not grown rapidly after a very deep recession. People feel like middle income Americans haven't had a raise in a decade probably. We just feel stuck in place and barely hanging on. You look at the cost of health insurance going up dramatically. MOTA just announced a proposed 32% increase in the individual market. So people are paying more, getting less, working harder if they can maintain the jobs they have. And they're rightfully frustrated. So I think they're turning to candidates this time who really want to go shake things up and get America in a better place. And I think that's the appeal that both Bernie Sanders on the left and Donald Trump on the right have.
Okay, I want to ask you about George Will and a Plan C for conservatives, but first we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5, joined again by Congressman Greg Walden. So, Congressman, there's a lot of talk from columnist George Will and other conservatives about a Plan C to, quote, recruit and run a true conservative as an independent presidential candidate to defeat Donald Trump. What's your response to that?
Well, you know, I'm not a columnist. Most of the deadlines have already passed, I think, to even file and run in some of these states. And if you were going to run, you should have run in the primary. The Stop Trump movement went nowhere but spent an enormous amount of money. And I think it didn't tap into what voters are telling and saying and doing right now. And they want somebody that's going to be an aggressive spokesperson to make America great again, to do the things that need to be done to get us back in a stronger position. And the notion you're going to run now magically find somebody that suddenly is going to appeal to conservatives when you had 17 candidates trying to appeal to conservatives for more than a year is great for columns, but I don't think is based in reality.
What type of person do you hope Donald Trump picks to be his running mate?
Well, first of all, you want somebody that can take over because they're a heartbeat away. I want somebody that's competent and capable. It'd be nice to have somebody that understands how Congress works so we have a good relationship. Barack Obama never fulfilled that other than with Joe Biden, but then wouldn't let him really work with Congress. When he did, we got things done. And somebody that's conservative and thoughtful. It'd be nice to have somebody that's got some military background. And I think that's additive to the ticket.
Okay. That's all the time we have. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
You're
Stay
welcome.
with us. We'll be right back.